Hello, everybody, and welcome to another of our webinar episodes. Today, Akiro and Slate integration. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Julian Pereira. I'm the lead solutions consultant at Akiro. My day-to-day is to provide those sort of consultative services to educational institutions in order to assist with your student recruitment. And in this case, talk about how an integration between Akiro and Slate can help you gain and retain students with valuable insight that can only be used to sort of optimize your student marketing. And this is my colleague, Jason.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Hamilton. I am the Product Success Director for our US clients here with Net Natives, and in particular with the Akiro platform. I've been in higher ed my entire career. Please don't let this bald head fool you. I've been around for a while, both on the undergrad and graduate side, and I've also been at several institutions that utilize Slate as their CRM. So it's a pleasure for us to be here today to share information about the integration of Slate, in particular, with the Akiro platform. So with Net Natives, which is powered by the Akiro platform, you'll see here our mission statement. We do a lot of different things for our clients, whether that's digital advertising through our agency, but also, as you'll hear and you'll see aspects of our Akiro platform, we leverage and utilize data and technology to enhance what you are doing within your student marketing and student recruitment efforts. And so you will see that we are always growing, we are always developing, and we are always trying to stay ahead of the curve, again, so that we can meet your student marketing and recruitment needs. So today's session is going to be focused on two things. And unfortunately, you'll have to hear my voice for the first part, and then you'll hear my colleague Julian's British accent for the second part. But we're going to tackle two things with you today. First, why should you even integrate with Akiro? And the second is going to be the steps on how to best set that integration up between Akiro and Slate. And you'll hear elements of what we call our gold standard integration. So these are going to include a few different steps and aspects of the integration that just allow us to be in the best position to help you and your institution. So with that being said, let's start with the main question of integration. And please know that Net Natives is a platinum level sponsor and premier partner with Slate. And we are in the process right now of finalizing our source format library template and integration to help make life easier for you. But as you are recruiting and as you are marketing, as we know, the student journey is cyclical, but we also know that students can hop in at any given point. So whether that's for an event that you're hosting, college fairs and recruitment visits, digital marketing, and anything that they can opt in, so to speak. But for us, it's important, and what we really want our clients to concentrate on is to be able to drill down. So to understand not only, yes, this student is now in my cycle and they're getting our email drip campaigns or different aspects, but how did they come into our system? So for many of you that are Slate users, you may call this first source or source, but for us, it's even deeper than that. We don't only want you to know that they came from, say, digital marketing efforts, we also want you to know that they came from Facebook and that they actually came from this particular campaign for Facebook, but even drilled down to the minute level to say they actually even came from this ad. And to be able to pull all of that information back into our platform, and if you have it set up and built out in Slate, that's great. That information can flow as well. But we want all stakeholders to be able to see and understand this information. So understanding the student journey, but then being able to drill down to the most minute level. Now, I've spent over 20 years in higher education, and I can tell you that this is usually in some form or fashion how our worlds work. And unfortunately, they're somewhat in circles, or some may call them silos. And you have enrollment and admissions on one side that is focused on generating leads, the recruitment process, getting applications and deposits, people that are enrolled. But we also know that sometimes the admissions and enrollment offices don't have insight into all of the marketing spend and how it's being, what does that media plan look like and what does it entail? And so they just get leads come in, then they handle the rest. Conversely, on the other side, you have marketing that even in the best scenarios are working together with enrollment and admissions, and they're helping to generate all these leads. But then once the lead comes in and is passed over to Slate, they have zero visibility and they don't have a sense of, hey, well, how is this ad and this campaign actually performing outside of leads? Because at the end of the day, everyone on that campus is trying to enroll students. So what Akiro does is we bridge the two. And again, we want you to have overlap. And as we talk about this, we know that everybody has a lot of different strategic partners or digital advertising partners or marketing partners out there as well. And one of the key questions that we always ask clients is, how quickly and how easily can you track all of these aspects that you see on the presentation right now? Of course, everybody can typically see the top three, but can you actually see your cost per application, admitted student, and enrolled? Usually that answer is no, but it's the biggest concept right now, especially within the marketing world of, I need to understand my return on investment. And that's also the same questions that marketing departments get from admissions is, what is my return on investment? And we are having trouble seeing all of that. So again, all of this starts to build up into this integration concept. And for us, it relates to a couple of different things. One is going to be visibility, making sure that the enrollment and admissions department can see everything from even the spend and what ads and how they're performing, but also conversely, again, as I mentioned before, marketing to be able to see how are students performing through the funnel, but then also any other stakeholder on your campus that may not necessarily have access to Slate. Or if they do, they just understand some of the basics and you're having to build different reports and pull things out. So for us, it comes back to enrollment attribution reporting, but also your contact pipelines. And some of the benefits for enrollment attribution reporting is that, again, I've already mentioned, you have visibility. You can directly and quickly and easily see and understand what is my return on our advertising spend, and also how can we use this information as we, not only in our current campaigns, but as we plan for our upcoming campaigns, better optimizing things, finding lookalike audiences, everything along the sort. But again, you're also able to see the whole student journey. So just because leads come in, you're also then able to see, well, are they actually starting an application? Are they moving through the process? But again, many departments, many institutions, it's in different places. And you're even having to pull Google Analytics and everything else to pull it all together. But for us, it lives in this one platform. And so we build out our integration and our pipelines of what you see here to completely mimic what your institution has set up as far as your inquiry and application flow within the application and admissions process. We want you to see exactly how you have yours is how we have ours. But again, you can quickly see these show you the different stages in the columns of the application funnel. And then under that are all the student records. And then you can drill down even farther to look at it from a granular level. Again, maybe more so for both audiences, marketing and enrollment. The other piece to this are cost. And so this is a screenshot of our dashboard for the enrollment attribution. And one of the things that you will see in that first column, kind of in the middle, it says cost per prospect or inquiry. It shows you cost per application, and it also shows you cost per enrolled students. So that you can quickly, one, on a yearly basis, on your annual spend, be able to see we spent X amount of money, and here's how many students we enrolled. Let's say it's 100, but we also know our cost per enrollment is X. The question always comes up around this time, and as you go through the year and as you're launching new programs, how much money do you need to be able to yield? While you yielded 100 students, that's great. We'd love to see 125. You now know and can utilize enrollment attribution for this concept called zero-based budgeting, in which you can say, here's what we know, And as we drill down in different campaigns, and I think the next screen also shows you as well, you can not only see the overall cost, but you can also see the cost efficiencies by your different platforms within your campaign. So Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, TikTok, all the lights. All of this comes together, and it actually starts with the Akiro to Slate integration. So let's see what the next slide is. Julian, I think it might actually turn things over to you, but last two slides, actually, we have developed what we call the gold standard integration, and it's comprised of 6 steps. The first one here is that if possible, we like to have any digital marketing efforts and things actually use our Akiro forms. Now, I know this is a Slate webinar, and I'm very familiar with Slate forms, and that is great to see. For us, the Akiro forms are the entry point. And so that's what allows us to be able to collect inquiries and then start the integration process with you and passing information over to Slate. The second step within the gold standard is to have a multi-part form. And that's something that we can talk about in a different session or offline. The first part typically gathers the basic information that we know is needed to create a record in Slate. And the second part becomes more of lead quality attributions and questions that we like to ask. And so we pass that over. The third is a two-way integration, which you'll hear more about. Julian is going to walk you through. The next 3 are, we want to make sure that your pipeline is matched up to ours, and so that things are built accordingly. And then also that the pipeline goes all the way through your process. It starts with inquiries, but goes all the way through to enrolled students, but also even those that you offered admission to, but they decided not to come. And then the last step is a two-way integration that happens on a daily basis. So those are the overview of why you should integrate and elements and benefits of the integration. At this point, I will turn things over to my colleague, Julian, who will walk you through all the various elements and stages of the integration.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. So I'm just going to exit here quickly. And the first place to begin is within your Akiro account. So once you log into Akiro, on top of all the really useful features that Akiro has to offer, from the advertising dashboards to submitting briefs, to add to Jason's point about using Akiro forms, one of the other reasons that we always suggest it is because Akiro provides form performance and analytics that we don't actually see in Slate, and that means the exact point in which prospects drop off at particular points in the form, but also it allows you to segment by prospects coming from particular sources. So it'll allow you to see the exact form submissions that you get in and compare those that are coming from Google to those that are coming from Facebook, for example. What that allows you is to actually optimize your forms depending on the lead sources of these prospects. And another feature that we always recommend as well that can be used in Akiro is the A/B testing tool, allowing you to do exactly that, do hypothesis of what you think might work on a form and be able to test that. For the initial point of the Akiro and Slate integration though, everything sits in our marketplace in the account settings, and then here in the bottom left, integrations. If you click on add a direct integration, you'll notice that we have the ability to be able to send data via SFTP, which matches a really simple way that Slate can accept that data. So going into another tab to show you what that looks like is once you click on SFTP, it will allow you to add your own profile. And so you can add a name to that profile and then copy the details of that username that you've created within Slate. So if we move over onto Slate and go onto database and user permissions, this is where you'll be able to create a user. In this example, we have Alex, in which when you click edit, it will allow you within the permissions section at the bottom in the roles here. In the roles section at the bottom, it will allow you to have that SFTP access that we need in Akiro. So it'll provide you with a host and the port. So going back into Akira, you can see that you can add the host and the port there, but then also the username and the password that you need to be able to create that user profile here. As another alternative, Akira does give you the option to be able to authenticate with a key, but you'll just have to get that key from Slate as well, but a password is fine as well. So it gives you both options. Once you created that SFTP profile, what we recommend is that you then create all the form fields in Akira that you want to send to Slate. So if we click here onto marketing and forms, this is where, similarly to Slate, you can create a form that mirrors all the data that you want to send from the Akira platform through to Slate. You'll see here that we've created a custom one as an example that includes first name, last name, email, mobile number, program of interest, preferred method of contact, city, US state. So a lot of these fields are already actually automatically available within Akira. So if you just click on the blue icon, this blue icon is throughout all of Akira, and it just allows you to instigate using that particular feature. You see that we actually have all those fields as preset fields, so you don't need to create them in terms of like email, first name, postcode, countries, anything like that. If you did want to create your own custom field, this is where you are able to do that as well. So similarly to Slate, you can create short answer fields, drop-down fields, multiple checkboxes, and create your own custom form in Akira for the data that you want to send into Slate. So as mentioned in this example, we created one with date of birth, intended term of entry, everything that you need. Once you've created that, what you can then do is create a workflow that automatically sends that data from Akira through to Slate. And so as an example, this is where you can go on recruitment and workflows, create a new workflow. And I've given you an example here called send to Slate. What the workflow automation in Akira allows you to do is various different options. So you can either send every single lead that comes from Akira through to your Slate instance, which is what we would suggest because you don't want to miss on any lead data. But if you did want to create custom workflows to only send leads from particular campaigns, you can do that as well by clicking on lead created and select the campaigns that you currently have in terms of advertising to send that data through. What you then need to do is just create an action, and you'll see that we already have the option to send data through to an SFTP directory. Now, SFTP, as you probably already know, just refers to like a file transfer protocol that essentially just encodes and transmits that data through from Akira through to Slate via a secure channel. Here, within the center SFTP directory is the profile that you've already created in the account settings. And then you will mirror the directory that you have in Slate to be able to send that data. And then under content, you have two options to be able to send that data in terms of format. You have as a JSON or as a CSV. In this case, we're using a CSV file. And so this CSV file has all the column headers of the data that we want to send in through to your Slate instance. So we have all the ones from the form. You see that we have first name, surname, email, cell number, program of interest, and so on. But there's also other really useful ones that are not present in the form and that we would definitely recommend sending as part of that gold standard integration. And what this refers to is, first of all, the UTM parameters. So that way within your Slate instance, you have the exact campaign, the exact source, the exact medium, and for Google Leads, you can also send the exact UTM term and content to know, as Jason said, exactly where that lead came from in terms of campaign, ads, and even the search words that they're using to find you in Google. Additionally, every single lead that comes into Akira comes and is created with their own unique Akira identifier. What this allows us to do by including the lead ID in the data that we send to Slate is that, first of all, you can query in Slate to be able to filter by leads that have an Akira ID, to be able to segment those that have come from your advertising to those that are coming organically through to Slate. But also, when we receive that data back, it allows us to match the applicant data that you're sending to our leads in Akiro based on this same lead ID. And so even if prospects throughout the application process change their email address, for example, which could be quite common, that doesn't mean that we miss out on matching any applicant data because we're doing it based on this Akira lead ID. And another one really important one is the Akira lead score. And the reason for this is essentially within Akira, we want to be able to categorize and prioritize leads. And so lead scoring is essentially a methodology used to rank prospects against a scale that represents the perceived value that each lead represents to your own institution. And so the resulting score is used to determine which leads your marketing and admissions teams will engage in order of priority. And this is something that we can automate within Akira. So each time a prospect opens an email, clicks through on an email, completes a multi-part form, is interested in a program of interest that you value really high, or for example, Google leads that are actively searching for your institution might be given a priority over leads that might be coming from Facebook from a general awareness course. And so what we can do is we can provide and automate that lead scoring so it allocates that prospect. And then within this workflow in Akiro, we can send that lead score through to your Slate instance so we can add up to the lead scoring matrix that you have in Slate. So once you've added all of the columns of your CSV, how you'd like those different columns to be labeled when that lead comes through via SFTP, what you need to do is to add each corresponding data tag. So for example, you'll notice that for first name, we have the data tags listed here. We just want to pull the first name from that form or from that in-platform lead. And so what this workflow will do is the data tag will pull that first name for that lead, regardless of whether it's coming from in-platform or from one of your Akira RFI forms, pull that actual lead's first name and then send it through to Slate automatically. And so all these data tags for all the form fields that you've created can be found and added to this one workflow. Once this one workflow is created, then you can easily clone it. And if you need to make any changes, then they're easy to amend. So in terms of Akira on the integration, it's very flexible in terms of sending data. So if you did need to make any changes or add any additional fields, they can just be added at a later date. Okay, so you've created your workflow, you set up the SFTP profile. What you can do now is, if you go into your all leads, this is where you have all of your prospects that are coming through from your various advertising channels. And so in this example, I have a test lead for myself, creating that has been created, completing that same Slate test form that I showed you a second ago. So as an example, the lead comes into Akira, and although normally automatically, I'm just doing this manually to be able to show you, that lead is sent through to Slate. And then within your Slate instance, if you click on database and then SFTP Explorer, within that same incoming folder that you have in your workflow, you'll notice that all of those prospects are coming through now automatically. And this is another thing that Jason was mentioning, the importance of having that two-way integration. So Akira doesn't send any of the data in batches. In fact, as soon as a lead comes into Akira, thanks to this workflow automation, that same lead will automatically be sent to your Slate instance for immediate processing or the nurture journeys that you may have in place. So if we click on any one of these examples, you'll see that it contains the exact send to Slate workflow that we had, including the Akira lead score. At this point, what you need to do is, if you haven't already, to create a source format that mirrors the data that you're sending through from Slate. So as Jason mentioned, because we are Platinum partners, you will be able to download that source format automatically from the library. We will let you all know as soon as that comes in. But in the meantime, you just have to create your own that mirrors that data that we're sending through from Akira. So At this point, once you have that data there, and you've checked on your SFTP Explorer and you've mapped it to leads and created all your prompts, we can just go back to Akira now and have a look at how we can receive that data back. So going back to slide deck. In terms of creating your Slate query, it's relatively simple. So in terms of the first steps, if you go onto your home screen, click on the form icon and select on queries, you'll be able to select new query and input the following. So the name, the label of the query, for example, center Slate, the type as local and the base as prospect. And don't worry, we do have an SFTP guide that we can forward you after this webinar today. You then click on edit query and scroll down and click on export. So here is where you'll be able to export all of that applicant data that we need from Slate back into Akira, because as Jason mentioned, we want to be able to track that enrollment attribution. We don't just need sort of impressions or clicks, but we want to track the exact cost per enrollment. And so what we want to do at this point is to set up a query that runs from Slate minimum once a day, that once a lead has been sent from Akira through to your Slate instance and they become an applicant, we want that applicant data to be sent back. And so we need the first name, the last name, the email, the engagement score if it's got one, but also the application status, the application decision, the cohort, and all of that information that we can update in Akira to be able to see exactly how many applicants you're getting from our advertising campaigns. And this relates back to, the sort of gold standard integration, because the more data that you send in through from your Slate instance back to Akira, the more that we can do from that data. For example, if you're also sending your termination reasons, we can use that data. And so within Akira, we won't just be able to identify how many applicants or enrolled students we get in from particular campaigns, but we'll be able to identify, for example, any potential correlations for prospects that are not making it, for prospects that are having their offers decline. Is the right tone of voice being used for advertising? Are you going through the correct channels? And so we can use all of that data between both platforms to be able to create lookalike audiences and make informed decisions when we're thinking about advertising in the future. Going back to the Slate query, so as mentioned on this window, you'll be able to select all of the form fills that you want to send from Slate to Akira. And this is where you have your drop-down list. At this point, when you're creating your Slate query, we will have an endpoint to provide you that you'll be able to add when you're scheduling that export. So on top of adding the endpoint and the correct headers, by adding that endpoint, that means that the data that you're sending through from your Slate instance is being received by Akira on a daily basis, and through our workflow automation, automatically updating that pipeline that Jason showed you a few slides ago. So once you create your Slate query and run to web service, that is the absolute end of it. So that is all automated by this point. So all that data going through from Akira to Slate is automated, no need for any manual processes. And that query from Slate back to Akira is also automated as well. As an example of the sort of correct information that we would need to get, this is how we would receive the Akira ID from your Slate instance: the first name, last name, email, status, submitted date, creation date. So all of this information that we can use to be able to sort of optimize your advertising and increase the number of enrollments. And so that is the way to be able to automate that Akira and Slate integration and be able to improve that sort of ROI of your advertising, be able to know the number, or not just the number, but also the cost per lead, the cost per application, the cost per enrollment. And then in the future, be able to know exactly how much it costs to get X number of applicants. Thank you.
Yeah. Julian, one of the things that I would add, I know we were talking about the export fields and different things that are coming in. We also realize and know, because we've seen from several of our clients and from previous experience as well, that Slate is very customizable based upon you and your institution, your business process, but then also just on your initial creation. So some of the things, additional things that we do ask for, Julian had mentioned, were your entry term of application, your active application round. And knowing that some of you use that in different ways, we also ask just so that we can verify, and it helps us with those segmenting and being able to filter down within the contact pipelines even more. Not only active application round, but the active application round key, so that we can verify and double check some information, as well as Julian had mentioned, your application statuses and decisions. Please know that this is all one documented, and we would, as Julian mentioned, be able to provide you guides and instructions on how to follow up with this. But our roles are to also make sure that this integration is set up and it's set up smoothly. So you're not just left to yourself to say, okay, now I've seen this webinar, now let me go forward and try to build out this integration myself. That's not what this is intended for, but it is meant to show you, here is the different steps, and we're here to help you, and we're partners in that process. Julian has done hundreds of integrations across our clients, both in the US and UK. I've also been in several since joining the company as well. Together, and the rest of our team, and working with you all, we are here to help provide support. But again, at the end of the day, to make sure that it's not just an integration that gives you leads, but integrations, this, again, we're stressing the two-way integration and the gold standard integration, so that you can maximize your marketing and recruitment efforts, just like what Julian said. It's not just for us and our benefit. It's not just for one department, admissions versus enrollment, but it's for all of us to be able to enhance the work that we're all doing together.
Exactly. And the benefit of this particular Kira Slate integration is that it doesn't have to disrupt any of your processes in Slate that you do on a daily basis, whether that's the marketing team, whether that's admissions, because we're only there as like the entry point of contact of all these leads coming through from in-platform leads or RFI forms. But that data is automatically and instantly being sent through to Slate. So it doesn't disrupt any of your current nurture journeys or anything that you do with your day-to-day.
So at this point, we'd like to open the floor for any questions. You can definitely put those in the chat or the Q&A, whichever might be comfortable, but we're curious to see if any of the attendees have any questions that we might be able to address at this particular time, not only for you, but also for the larger group. Okay, one question that we got, Julian, is how long does an integration take to set up? I'll give my generic answer, and then you can go into more detail. I venture to say that we would both say it depends and it varies. Again, we are here to help and assist you through that process, but I think it also is largely dependent upon you as a potential partner with us, and so our clients. And what we mean by that is we know that different people come with different experiences within Slate, and then also just CRMs and integrations in and of itself. So it kind of depends on the knowledge of your team and the individuals at your institution that we'd be working with. Sometimes everyone is new to it, and so it can take a little bit longer. Others have some experienced teams, and or you might be working with a consultant that is able to assist in the process. Julian, what would you add to that?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. You know, in our role within this integration is to be able to facilitate the process as much as possible. So, you know, we have project plans in place with exact timelines and the exact steps that it takes to be able to complete the integration. We have guides, not just for the Akira side of things, but for the Slate side of things, so the implementation that is required to be able to finalize it. So yeah, absolutely. Just like, you know, with any integration, it varies, but we have put a system in place that, you know, facilitates the process as much as possible.
Let's see, it looks like we might have one other question. And it relates to data fields that can come over from Slate back into Akira and into our pipelines. And it looks like we had mentioned that there are certain fields, data points we like to bring over. Question is, are there additional data points that a client may ask or want to see brought over into Akiro to be able to use segments or filters?
In terms of what data can be sent from Slate back to Akiro, as you saw with some of those final steps, you can pull through any data that can be added to that query and send it back to Akiro. What I would say is, that these conversations that we will have about what data should be sent back to Akiro are the most important ones, because there's a lot that we can do with that data in terms of advertising. As already mentioned, we can create specific lookalike audiences that can be applied to future campaigns. And if there's any data that we don't initially acquire in Akiro, or applicant data that we need from Slate that you can then send back to us, we can do a lot with that in terms of lead scoring and improving sort of campaign performance.
The only thing that I would add is, just like, say we're using a digital marketing campaign and a landing page and form, and a particular school at your institution has some targeted specific questions as it relates to that school or say a particular program, we do acknowledge and know that sometimes while we're collecting that data, that field has to be created in Slate in your database and then of course mapped. So again, if there's additional data points that might be helpful to come back over into Akiro, we would just work with you on that, because again, like you're creating, we would also have to create that field in your particular Akiro account to make sure that it's helpful and useful. These are all great questions. And these are things that ideally for us in the product and product success team, Julian and myself in particular, it's great to have these conversations at the beginning of integration and implementation, or at least at the beginning of a new campaign, so that we can gather as much information at the front end and not have to constantly add stuff as the campaign goes. We can do that, but again, it's just a matter of having to push data back and forth again. So
100%.
Let's see, we actually have another question. Does the data that flows back and forth from Slate and Akiro allow digital campaign managers to optimize digital campaigns and ads based on a student's interaction with campaigns or place in the enrollment process? For example, adjusting ads and content a student sees based upon their activity. That's a great question. And I would say yes, definitely. And that's the intent, is that our planners and our paid media team are constantly looking at performance. And it is also one of the aspects in the Akiro platform where we can see advertising performance, and as Julian mentioned before, even landing page performance, form performance, and we are looking to optimize on a constant basis. So again, as Julian mentioned, as this two-way integration is set up, our teams will not only be looking at advertising performance, but then also comparing that with how your contact pipeline is performing based upon inquiry to app started, to app submitted, admitted. And they are also digging to see, okay, yes, we generated a good number of inquiries, but here are the campaigns that are really driving people. Here are the ads that we're seeing that are also getting better responses from the application funnel. So
yeah, correct. And not just that as well, but if you're doing your email nurture from Akiro as well, you'll be able to optimize and even filter by specific email templates that are being open in conjunction with a particular pipeline stage and a particular campaign tactic. So, the options in terms of optimizing and filtering and segmenting to be able to optimize campaigns are endless. And if you're doing the advertising with us, we have campaign planners that would provide you with recommendations on a weekly basis based on the performance of these pipelines and those campaigns.
The second part of the question, adjusting ads and content based upon activity, yes. And again, that's something that our planners and paid media team would be able to make recommendations on. If you're not seeing that as a client, and be able to update ads and content and messaging and wording based upon what we're seeing.
Yeah, and also the benefit of using Akira as well is it's not just for our paid media planners to be able to access that information, but also for you as well. So you'll have constant access into Akira, into the form performance, the page performance, the pipeline performance, and campaign performance, for you to be able to make those recommendations in conjunction with the ones that we make as well. So, you know, everybody has visibility of every single one of the features.
I used to, at a previous institution, our doors and our walls, a couple of our walls to our offices were glass, and they were frosted glass. But I used to tell everybody then, just like what I would say now, the Akira platform is full visibility. So, I mean, in essence, it's not only glass walls, but it's also glass ceiling, glass floor, to where everybody can see in all at the same time. And again, I think that that's a benefit of the platform that we have. Is obviously the benefit of the Slate to Akira integration. Again, it's just visibility. So all clients, all stakeholders, internally and externally of Net Natives, we all have access. And I think that that is one of our distinguishing factors. And again, one of the benefits of this integration. I don't think we have any more additional questions at this time. I want to thank Julian for doing a wonderful job in walking you all through both aspects in Akira and in Slate. I know that I've enjoyed being part of this webinar and presentation this morning. And if there are any additional questions, feel free to contact us. I know that registrants and attendees today will get some follow-up communications as well. But I'll turn things also over to Julian, but thank you for your time this morning.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you everyone for listening, and for Jason going through involvement attribution and all the things that we can do with this Akira and Slate integration. Thanks everyone.